Judge Engoron is starting to look a lot like Fannie Willis. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to UnwokeThoughts. Tonight, we are talking about this dirt that has been dug up on Judge Engoron. And normally, I wouldn't talk about these types of things out here, but just for him, I'm going to make a special exception because he is exceptionally corrupt. This fine that he's requiring Donald Trump to pay for $355 million for something that businesses do as a regular practice, something that is not illegal, something that is a agreement between a bank and a business person, someone who is a real estate developer, what have you, something that is going to really throw a wrench in the entire justice system. But this guy, surprise, surprise, he has some skeletons in his closet. Look at this. We have a tweet from George. Yes, George Behizzy tweets, my co-host on Firebrand Media, he tweets, breaking. Judge Engoron, who just ruled against Donald Trump in New York, has previously been accused of having an affair with the law secretary of a plaintiff's counsel, whose case was before Manhattan Supreme Court Justice Martin Schoenfeld. Simply put, Engoron worked for the judge as a law secretary and was in an entanglement. Wow, so that's a reference to Will Smith, that poor guy. You know, these entanglements are happening everywhere, even with that mug, even with this mug right here. Did he look better when he was a younger guy, or did he always look like an alien? Because I can't imagine. I'm sorry, guys. I can't imagine. But he was in an entanglement with the law secretary of the plaintiff's lawyers. Schoenfeld, is that how you say the name? At the request of the defendants, recused himself from the case because of Engoron's actions. This was back in 2002, so this was several years ago. Maybe Judge Engoron looked a little bit different than this miserable-looking fella right here. This is what corruption does to you guys. Look at him. Look at his eyes. This is the eyes of an evil person who ruled a corrupt ruling, and who knows what he's getting out of this. Power, money, nobody knows. But we do know one thing. He doesn't like Donald Trump, and he seems to have an affinity for Letitia James. That right there is something to be suspicious of, because who would have an affinity for that miserable... Okay, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. But guys, let's dig a little bit deeper into this scandalous situation. The Gateway Pundit is who reported on this, or at least that's who I saw first. And they said, Judge Engoron, accused of banging secretary of opposing counsel in previous case. Well, they just don't mince words over there at the Gateway Pundit, do they? He was banging the secretary of opposing counsel. He wasn't having an entanglement, as George put it, but no, he was, in fact, banging the secretary. And look, there's beautiful Judge Engoron right there. Yes, he likes to take pictures and post them on these college boards or whatever he was doing. He's surprisingly fit. Maybe that's how he got in this entanglement with this individual. But on Friday, far-left Judge Arthur Engoron fleeced $355 million from President Trump for taking out loans in New York State and paying them back on time with interest. Wow, I couldn't have said it better myself. The charges were brought against Trump by crazed New York State Attorney General Letitia James. There were no victims in the so-called crime. The banks did their due diligence before they loaned Donald Trump the money and testified that they would gladly do it again. So there wasn't any negative testimony against Donald Trump for this fraud that the banks apparently were showed by Donald Trump because, they made money off of it. They made money off the interest when he paid the money back. But Judge Engoron called this a crime and ruled that President Donald Trump owed the state $355 million. Wow. This is highway robbery. So there's no victim, and the state pretends to be the victim. Or the state they get the money in this case because there is no victim. How is this not just straight robbery? This is like worse than taxes. People say taxation is theft, and that's very true. I agree. But man, they go completely mask off when they do something like this. Hey, I found a crime. There's no victim. And now we rule that you owe us $355 million with interest, actually, because all of this money while this case was going on has accrued interest. So it's probably closer to $500 million by now. Engoron also put a Clinton-appointed judge in control of Trump's business empire in New York State. Judge Engoron also appointed retired U.S. District Judge Barbara Jones to continue in her role as an independent monitor of the Trump business empire, but expanded her authority to review financial disclosures before they are submitted to third parties. Judge Jones can hire an independent director of compliance, and she has the authority to compel Trump to sell some or even all of his business down the road. This is all punishment for Trump allegedly committing fraud by falsely inflating and deflating the value of his real estate assets to pay lower state taxes and to receive more favorable loans from banks. But Arthur Engoron is no Boy Scout. Wow, really? Wow, this is surprising. This is news to me. I thought this guy was, he was a shining example of an American patriot. But now I'm finding out that he's not in fact a shining example of an American patriot. Look at this. Engoron was banging the secretary of opposing counsel during a previous case, a complete ethics violation. This is why I say this is a lot like Fani Willis. These people, they don't have any sort of honor, apparently, and they don't understand what it means to follow rules and procedures. And apparently Engoron and Fani Willis are just two peas in a pod. But the Jewish Telegraphic Agency reported this in 2022. So this came from a Jewish publication. Nathan Lewin, a defense attorney for the Union of Orthodox Rabbis of the United States and Canada, said the court's January 23 ruling against his clients in several pretrial decisions is suspect because of that relationship, of which he was not informed until last month. Lewin is defending the rabbis in an $11 million defamation suit. I was about to say $11. Wow, that's that's it. Filed against Helen Seeger of Borough Park, who claims their decision to allow her husband to remarry without reacquiring him to grant her a rabbinic divorce, in effect labeled her an unfit spouse. Lewin said in court papers that the law secretary, Arthur Engoron, claims he only began dating the secretary of the opposing counsel, Christopher Sullivan, on May 10th. But Lewin said Sullivan's actions in the case may have been influenced by information he received from the woman identified in the papers only as Sue. And Lewin noted that Engoron was drafting later decisions and communicating with the judge about this case during the time he was dating Sue. Schoenfeld, at the request of the defendants, recused himself from the case on July the 1st after revealing that he had recently learned of the relationship. He said Engoron's conduct raised ethical questions that he would report to the appropriate authorities. Lewin said actions taken in this case may be criminal in nature and asked the court to conduct a full investigation. But as they note right here, this is very true. This won't make any headlines. You won't see this on many papers, that's for sure. But since we're on the subject of Engoron, who is this guy? Who is Arthur Engoron, the judge who ordered Trump to pay $350 million in New York civil fraud case? This is from Fox News. So let's kind of dive a little bit deeper into this guy. Let's see if there's anything else juicy in his past. But the New York Supreme Court Judge Arthur Engoron, who presided over former President Donald Trump's contentious civil fraud trial, is a longtime judge who once pursued a career in music, drove a yellow taxi, and still authors an alumni newsletter about his high school. Wow. Engoron was born in Queens, New York in the late 1940s before his family moved to Long Island, where he attended the Wheatley School, a public high school in Old Westbury, New York. Engoron was active at the school, running track and contributing to the school's newspaper before graduating from the school in 1967. Years after his graduation, Engoron founded the Wheatley Alumni Association and still authors the group's online newsletter. Engoron published the most recent newsletter entry on Monday, boasting of increased traffic on the blog, listing the compliments the newsletter had received and detailing life updates of past Wheatley graduates. So I guess following this ruling against Trump, Trump's stardom is everywhere. So everyone's reading his blog now, and he's probably thinking, wow, I'm just such an interesting guy. Hey, Letitia, look at this. We're cool now. We're in the cool group now because, we poked the bear. We poked at Donald Trump. So, yeah, this is disgusting, guys. Quote, please send me your autobiography before someone else sends me your obituary, he concluded, as he does in every post before signing off as art. What does that mean? But after high school, he attended Columbia University in Manhattan and even drove a yellow taxi cab. Yeah, look at him. Look at this guy. He looks like a taxi driver. And if he were my taxi driver or Uber driver, I probably wouldn't get in that cab. I'd probably be like, nah, no thank you. I'm going to go to the next one. While pursuing his undergraduate degree, while hearing a case in 2012 related to New York City taxi cabs, Engoron stated he loved his time as a cab driver because he learned how to drive like a maniac without being caught. Interesting. So this guy is probably a big fan of the Need for Speed movies, all 272 of them, and he probably goes to every single one at the theaters. But years after he attended the New York University School of Law, graduating in 1979, and then immediately after receiving his law degree, he joined the law firm of Olwine, Connolly, Chase, O'Donnell, and Wire as an associate, crossing paths with the late Judith Kay, who served as chief judge of the state of New York of appeals. Engoron departed the firm to join another firm, Pryor, Cashman, Sherman, and Flynn, as an associate in 1981. Engoron, though, left that firm in 1983 to pursue a career in the music industry. ABC News reported, for years he worked as a musical instructor. Quote, I have had a lot of lawyers who got to another firm, but he's the only one who told me he was leaving to pursue music. James Jonowitz, a partner at Pryor, Cashman, Sherman, and Flynn, told ABC News last year. He ultimately returned to the law profession when in 1991, wow, that's the year I was born. What an unlucky year, right? He became a principal law clerk for the New York Supreme Court Justice Martin Schoenfeld. He remained in that position for 11 years. In 2003, Engoron became a judge on the New York City Civil Court, and a decade later, he was appointed to be an acting justice of the state's trial court. In 2015, he ran unopposed for a permanent spot on the court. According to his official New York court biography, Engoron remains a member of the New York County Lawyers Association, the American Civil Liberties Union, Brown Law Society, Columbia College, and NYU Law Alumni Associations, Jewish Lawyers Guild, and New York Women's Bar Association. Interesting. But meanwhile, last week, in his most high-profile case, Engoron barred Trump from operating his business in New York for 3 years and ordered the former president to pay $355 million in damages. The case was initiated after Democratic New York Attorney General Letitia James filed a lawsuit alleging Trump inflated his assets and committed fraud. So yeah, guys, Engoron, who was a taxi cab driver for a while, he was a musical director, then he was a lawyer for a while, then he got out of law, then he got back into music directing or something like that. He kind of went up and down in his career choices. Ultimately, him and Letitia James became the ones to bring this case against Donald Trump, where he is now the judge, and he just banged the gavel and said, I decree Donald Trump pays $355 million in damages to the state of New York, not to any victims of any fraud that he committed. No, to the state of New York. And guys, I saw this really funny tweet that I think would be awesome. And honestly, I could see Donald Trump doing this sort of thing, but listen to this and imagine just in your mind this actually playing out. Wouldn't it be ironic if the same banks that loaned Trump money secured by Mar-a-Lago loaned him $500 million secured by Mar-a-Lago to pay New York so he can appeal Letitia James and Judge Engoron's judgment against him? Yes, Trump. I know you probably don't watch my show, but please do this. Please. I would love you forever. Okay, I already love you forever, but please do this. That would be hilarious. But what do you guys think? What do you think of these skeletons in Judge Engoron's closet? Do you think there are more? What other skeletons do you think are in his closet? And what do you guys think about the fact that he used to be a taxi cab driver? What do you think about that? Would you get into a taxi cab with this guy? Let me know down below in the comments what you think. Like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until then, I will see you on the next one.